Hey there, everybody. Dr. Nathan Thompson. We're here with Exemplify Health Center, an affiliate of the Wellness Way. Happy Monday evening, guys. Welcome to part 3 of allergies, what you can do while your body heals. And I'm going to talk about some unknown herbs you probably have never heard about that can actually help to calm down an immune system response. Hopefully now we are broadcasting right now to Facebook. We're broadcasting to Instagram on a phone, and we're also broadcasting on YouTube and also on a Rumble platform. The streaming software that I use completely did an overhaul since last week. So we had some problems connecting everything together. I think we got it. However, being able to simultaneously see me and the slides in the same view is going to be a little bit harder because they changed that. So I'm going to do my best. Apologize if we get a couple of technical errors as we go through this. So while we are waiting for people to jump on right now, guys, please make sure that you say hello. Let me also know where you're watching from. That includes if you are on Facebook or if you are on Rumble platform, if you're also on the YouTube platform, and that also includes Instagram as well. So I know that we have people watching. Cindy, how are you? Joe, it's good to always see you. Let me know, guys, where you are watching from. It's really awesome to see people watch from all over the world. And I'm going to see if I can actually bring up the slides. And this is what happens when, there we go. They changed the streaming platform to stream some things. So apologize for some of the technical difficulties. All right, guys, so we're going to be going over part 3. Part 3 is natural remedies that you probably have never heard about when it comes to allergies. Okay. Now, if you guys are jumping on, again, make sure that you say hello. And if you guys already don't, please give us a follow at Dr. Nathan Thompson. You can follow us on YouTube. You can follow us on Rumble, Rumble, Instagram, also on TikTok at the Dr. Nathan Thompson hashtag. You can also, if you don't, you can follow us on Facebook at Dr. Nathan Thompson and also at Exemplify Health Center. So guys, please make sure you give us a follow. YouTube and Rumble, we do a long format video. Also on Facebook as well, but then we also put out some short content that hopefully you guys find thought-provoking, maybe even a little bit of controversial. All right. So I made a post the other day about I only do 60 minutes of cardiovascular type exercise per week. And boy, some people's worlds just turn upside down. They said you need to be doing several hours. And I said, train how I train, and you won't be able to do it for several hours. So guys, less can be better, especially when you are talking about the intensity at which you train. I actually think that steady state exercise is almost useless unless you're training for an event that requires steady state exercise. This long drawn out moderate intensity type of stuff really only benefits if you are doing a competition for long drawn out type of activity. But guys, when it comes to working out, when it comes to preserving your hormone cortisol, intensity and short duration is the king. And then why not, guys, while you do that, why not add in movements that you need in everyday life? So yes, you do need to run, but you also need to squat, you need to press. And so guys, no one has 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours to be able to do movement, but you do have 10 or 15 minutes, and why not get the most bang for your buck by training that way? All right, guys. So before we go into the thing about things that you've heard about that you never have heard about that can help with an immune system response, let me turn my lights back on. There we go. I want to go over an interesting test that I went over with an individual earlier on today. People say, what does your day look like, Dr. Nate? Well, it's pretty much all consults. And we saw a lot of people with no energy, a lot of people with fatigue, people who have had cancer and did an immune panel after, they've gone through treatment of cancer. So we see all different types of individuals. Here is an immune system panel that comes from someone who has gone through cancer treatment. I won't say specifically the type of cancer, just to keep them their information private. But they have gone through, chemotherapy to try to shrink the cancerous tissue. And what's interesting is I said, well, let's actually do an immune system panel, and let's see where your immune system is at after you have gone through chemotherapy. Just remember this, guys. Chemotherapy is merely doing the job that the immune system failed to do. So when you basically introduce toxic material into the body, the reason why chemotherapy can work in certain circumstances, especially with tumors that are more quickly growing, is because it will metabolize the toxin and die off before the rest of you actually dies off. That's why chemotherapy can be successful in cells that have a very, very high metabolism. That's why it doesn't do very well if the cancer is very slow growing. So he had undergone 5 rounds of chemotherapy in order to lower his tumor burden. And so we did the famous immune system test. And if you haven't seen this before, you can go back about a year and a half ago, and this is what we were running, on people post what, and actually clinically proved that it was harming the immune system, specifically harming certain cells that were responsible for not only tumor suppression, but also for a viral response. So we did this on this individual. And if you look at here and you see on this slide how everything is low, 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 low. And you can see CD3 cells, which is basically a combination of CD4 and CD8. You can see is low. His CD4 cells, which are considered as helper T cells, you can see are low. CD8 cells, tumor suppressing cells, you can see are also on the low end. CD19 cells, also known as your B lymphocytes. This is responsible for antibody production. You can see extremely low. And then you can also see the CD56 cells. These are called natural killer cells, which are responsible for tumor suppression as well. It's the body's first response to viral infection. You can see are low as well. And you can see the total number of lymphocytes you can see are extremely low. So this is someone who's gone through cancer treatment, and the very thing that they need in order to prevent cancer from coming back has in fact been destroyed. This is why you can go through cancer treatment, but if you never ever change the physiology that brought the cancer on, and you never ever get the immune system back up to sufficiency, the only thing that cancer treatment is going to do for you is it's going to buy you time. That's the only thing that it does, is buy you time, which is why if it truly was getting rid of the cancer, they would have no need to actually continue checking for it down the road. So all it is it is getting rid of a tumor, but it does nothing in order to change the physiology that brought it on in the first place. And this is why I think here in the United States, our treatments of cancer is absolutely abysmal. They say that you're healthy when you're free of cancer. But again, guys, if you throw out rat poisoning and kill off all the rats without cleaning up the garbage dump, then the only thing that's done is buy time before new rats actually come and start scavenging the garbage. So you can see that this has left him, even if he's seen that the tumor has gone down, if he does nothing in order to build up his immune system response and change the physiology that brought it on, the only thing that the cancer treatment is doing is just buying him a little bit of extra time. So I found that interesting because he needs to restore his immune system back up to sufficiency, which is one of the things that we're going to start doing with this individual. Okay. So I want to share with you, and you guys, if you haven't gone back and you haven't watched part 1 and part 2, part 1 and part 2 is, you're more welcome to watch this one, but this will make sense once you watch part 1 and you watch part 2. So if you didn't have a chance to watch that, please go back and watch part 1 and part 2. And that'll help you to understand the immune system and why there's been an explosion of allergies and food allergies and things like that. And that will help you to understand what I'm going to talk about with you right now. Now, here is an interesting article that comes out of the Southern Medical Association, and it's titled "The Role of Histamine in Depression." Okay. So when people talk about mental illness and they talk about depression, many times they leave out the chemical and the physical. Well, I will say this, as far as chemical is concerned, they just say it's because you don't have enough serotonin. Okay. Now, just remember, guys, serotonin is primarily is manufactured within the gastrointestinal system, really only about 3 to 5%, depending on who you're listening to, is actually manufactured within the brain. That's why I'd like to look at any kind of issue that affects the brain. Is the brain is really a receiver for what's happening in the body. It's an antenna for what's happening in the body. And that's why, guys, when you talk about having an unhealthy body, it's impossible for you to have a healthy mind as well. The brain is the antenna for what's happening in other parts of the body. That's why they talk about the mind-body connection. It's connected between the two. It's not just some kind of abnormal chemical reaction that just runs in your family. And in fact, instead, what you do is you tend to have the same lifestyle that can bring on illness in your family. So the body is extremely important as far as having a healthy mind. But what's interesting is that now even medical doctors are saying, hey, you know what? Maybe we should start looking a little bit deeper. So in this research article that they did, or in this article that they did, it was just from about a year and a half ago, and it was called The Role of Histamine in Depression. I'm going to read some interesting points to you. So here's what they say. Recent research is suggesting that reduced serotonin levels due to bodily inflammation may explain ineffectiveness of antidepressants for some people. See, what's interesting is that most people think that you take an antidepressant and all of your problems go away, but it actually doesn't help so many people that they need to start looking in a different direction. So depression affects 1 in 10 of the adult population in the United States. Mostly a majority of them are women, mainly because a lot of doctors don't teach women that you will have, if you're a cycling woman, you will have certain times of your month that you might feel a little unhappy and a little depressed because of your hormones. And they're taught, rather than, hey, this is just a normal thing that's going on, during your cycle, women are left wondering, well, maybe I'm actually depressed. It's the main cause of disability globally, okay? And many individuals do not respond to pharmaceutical antidepressant therapy, indicating a need for improved understanding of the development of depression. See, if anybody says, yep, we know it's the reason because of this, or anyone gives you absolutes when it comes to any single kind of illness, please run away from them, because when they say that the science is settled, science is never settled, or else you wouldn't be calling it science. So there is a need to look, they even admit, to look on a deeper level. So some emerging data points to the immune system, particularly what's interesting, they say here, is the inflammatory response. Stress-induced inflammatory signals can be transmitted to the brain and affect the activity of neurotransmitters. So is there a stress response associated with depression? The answer is yes. One neurotransmitter frequently linked to depression is serotonin. Notice how they say linked to depression, because they still don't know really what causes depression. So low levels of serotonin are linked to the symptoms of depression. Notice how they say again, linked. Many individuals with depression are prescribed selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, otherwise known as SSRIs, to prevent its reabsorption. So an SSRI prevents the reabsorption of serotonin, therefore allowing more of that neurotransmitter to be able to be in the extracellular fluid to then be able to transmit signals between one neuron and to the other, okay? Now, Dr. Parastu Hashimi and colleagues at the Imperial College of London in the United Kingdom, they measured serotonin movement around the brain by placing microelectrodes into the hippocampus, which is an area of the brain of live mice. They then injected the mice with an inflammation-causing toxin called lipopolysaccharide, okay? Notice how they had to inject it. If they ate it, the stomach would have broken it down with stomach acid, and which would have inactivated that. Isn't that interesting, guys, how we've talked about allergies, and we talked about how they can actually elicit an immune response by injecting things, but not by taking things orally because of the stomach acid breakdown. Guys, what's interesting is, have you ever noticed that you cannot take oral insulin? Have you ever wondered why they haven't come up with a pill for people who are type 1 diabetic, who are insulin dependent type 1 diabetes? And the reason why is if they took the insulin orally, the stomach acid would actually break it down, which is why they have to bypass that and inject it. Now, when they injected the mice with this inflammation-causing toxin, lipopolysaccharide, the inflammation led to robust decreases in extracellular serotonin in the mouse hippocampus, that area of the brain. And so they say that we show that decreased serotonin. Let me see if I can bring this up. There we go. Decreased serotonin levels because of inflammation are supported by increased histamine activity. Histamine, what is it? It is basically a chemical that is given off by the degranulation of certain types of immune system cells. So if you keep going, here's what they also say. Let me see if I can bring myself back up, okay? He said, this work reveals a profound effect of inflammation on brain chemistry. Interesting, huh? Inflammation and brain chemistry, specifically the rapidity of inflammation-induced decreased extracellular serotonin, and points the spotlight at a potentially critical player in the pathology of depression, histamine. See, how many times when someone is depressed, do they go to the doctor and they say, Doc, I don't feel very happy and I'm depressed. And the first thing that they do is they want you to go on an SSRI for how long? Well, for the rest of your life, because I have seen very, very few people who have been able to go off of SSRIs, or even a doctor who has given them a taper plan to be able to go off of SSRIs. And one of the reasons why people never, ever go off of it is they never correct one of the problems that can lead to depression, which is an inflammatory response. But they're saying now is that depression is linked to inflammation. And what is inflammation? It's an immune system response. What is it responding to? It's responding to foreign proteins. Now figure out why you would be getting a lot of foreign proteins inside of your body that would be bypassing the barriers. That's also why, guys, if you do look at people who do have a lot of depression, ask them if they have a lot of gastrointestinal issues, especially. So they say that this is this. Dr. Hashimi, who ran the study, said inflammation could play a huge role in depression. And there's already strong evidence that patients with both depression and severe inflammation are the ones most likely not to respond to antidepressants. Now, closing statement that they said was this. They believe that failure to respond to SSRIs may be due to abnormalities of neurotransmitter systems that excite serotonergic neurons, such as histamine, okay? So what excites serotonergic neurons? What excites them? Think about where most of your serotonin is produced. And I have an arrow there that says that most of your serotonin is produced in the gut. So if you are having an inflammatory reaction within the gastrointestinal system that's causing histamine response, could that in fact then lead to a decrease in serotonin available within the brain? And now there's your understanding that the gut affects the brain. It's just that they'll never tell you, and they'll throw an antidepressant at you. And even if it doesn't work, then they'll switch the medications or they'll give you a stronger dose. Now, this points to what could be happening within the gastrointestinal system. Okay. So here's my question. How many people do you know suffer with depression and also have gastrointestinal issues? So I want you to think about it. Think about that. Now you'll be asking the question, what about bipolar? So what about these people who have severe depression and then also may have severe mania, anxiety, and things like that? Here's what's interesting even about that is that look at their ability to be able to break down the catecholamines, which are stress hormones, after eliciting a stress response. See, this is why you have to figure out what could be causing a stress response and what's their ability to be able to break down those neurochemicals. Because yes, there are some people who do have what you would know as a single nucleotide polymorphosis or genetic SNPs. And some people have a harder time being able to break down catecholamines. And if they do, then their problem is that they have a stress response and those catecholamines aren't broken down and they stay stimulating the body for long periods of time. And guys, you can actually measure this thing. But the big takeaway that I want that everybody to get is maybe we should start looking deeper. Maybe we should start looking a little bit deeper than just saying, if you have this, then take this pharmaceutical approach. And isn't it true? I mean, how many times is there just this simplistic response of saying high blood pressure, medication, high cholesterol, medication, depression, medication, poor upset stomach, medication, low iron, take some iron. And meanwhile, it goes a lot deeper than that. You have to look at the body as a whole. You have to understand the whole body's physiology and how every organ system plays off of the other organ system as well. So let's talk about a little bit about this whole idea with allergies. And this, yes, can be food allergies, both IgG, IgE responses. This can also be seasonal allergies as well. And people ask me this all the time. And no, I do not want you to run out and go get it. Please don't do that. That would be the Dr. Oz approach. And I always am hesitant at talking about things that can help because it always comes under the footnote of saying you have to start correcting the reason why it's happening. Otherwise, remember, guys, there is nothing more powerful than a pharmaceutical for a symptom. When people say, well, I'm just going to do, herbs, I'm going to do this for my symptom. Nope, a drug will be more powerful than that. They'll have a heck of a lot more side effects, but you want to get to the reason why it's happening in the first place. So are there natural things that can help with an allergy response? And the answer is yes, absolutely, 100%. And we utilize it every single day. Okay. Now, let me show you some research that talks about things that can suppress an allergy response. Okay. So these all these articles come from PubMed. And so these are peer-reviewed journals. Okay. The first one they talk about is called Albizia. Albizia suppresses the histamine signaling by the inhibition of histamine H1 receptors and histidine decarboxylase gene transcriptions. Isn't that interesting? So they talk about in this, histamine plays major roles in allergic diseases, and its action is mediated mainly by histamine receptors. We've demonstrated that histamine signaling related and histidine decarboxylase genes are allergic diseases, sensitive genes, and other expression level affects severity of the allergic symptoms. But basically what they said is, hey, Albizia, if you've never heard of that before, helps to suppress the histamine response. This is why when we give people Albizia, especially when they have the presence of a lot of IgG food allergies, one of the first things that they say is wow, my belly feels so much better. And it also has taken a lot of the swelling and a lot of what feels like inflammation and water retention out of the body. Here's another one, anti-allergic activity of standardized extract of Albizia. And so they say this in this article, we evaluated the anti-allergic activity of the standardized extract of Albizia with respect to catechin, which is considered a basically allergy marker. The results support the conclusion that Albizia at different concentration has got potent mast cell stabilizing property. So notice how it helps to stabilize mast cell, especially when people are talking about mast cell activation syndrome. And when they have it, they say, if I take an antihistamine, it typically helps. Well, there's something that's better than an antihistamine, and it's called Albizia. What they say is the inhibitory potential of catechin from Albizia is perhaps due to modulation of two important effectors functions, histamine release and cytokine expression of antigen IgE activated mast cells. See, the thing is that Albizia actually works like the medications that are out there. Okay, so they either will inhibit the degranulation of cells, or they'll block the receptor sites for histamine. And what's interesting, guys, is when you look at medications that they have used, really what they're using the mechanism of action that come from specific herbs that have been used for either hundreds or thousands of years, but then they take it, they make it synthetic, and then say, look what we discovered. So Albizia, guys, can be a great thing in order to suppress the histamine response while you heal. Here's another one. How many of you guys have heard of Astragalus? So Astragalus, the efficacy and safety of Astragalus in the treatment of patients with seasonal allergic rhinitis. So this study was designed to investigate efficacy and safety of Astragalus. I got to stop there and say this, because how many times as your doctor puts you on 10 medications, but the moment that you say, I think I want to take an herb, they'll go to Dr. Google, look at what Google has decided to promote, and then they'll tell you how dangerous it is. Now, there are certain times where you got to be careful with some herbs, but the reality is then I would ask that same doctor, hey, doc, with between me and my two other specialists, I'm taking 7, 8 different medications. Have you guys ever ran a drug interaction checker on that to see if some of these drugs are causing a problem with polypharmacy or are causing a problem with interactions? And many times I've run that on patients, and I said, you need to talk to your doctor, because some of these things are actually counteracting each other, and some of these things could be actually causing you harm. And in fact, some of these things are maybe the reason why you're in here in the first place. So they looked at the efficacy of Astragalus. Here's what their conclusion was. The study revealed a significant number of positive signals indicating the therapeutic effectiveness of Astragalus in patients with seasonal allergic rhinitis, which should be investigated or tested in a larger multi-center trials with more patients. So I always wonder, why haven't they done that? And so if they see positive results from 2010, why don't they run a huge study on that? And because really there's no money in things that are natural. So we talked about Albizia, we talked about Astragalus. Here's another one that can help with an allergy response, and it's called Coleus. So Coleus does a number of different things, and many of herbs have a crossover effect as far as how they affect the body. See, like Astragalus, yes, has an anti-allergy effect, but Astragalus also is considered the longevity herb, mainly because it also helps to preserve your DNA from oxidative damage, which is really important. The more damage you get to your DNA, to your genes, the more it actually will shorten your lifespan. Another thing that's shown, that research has shown, that Astragalus actually helps with stem cell production within the bone marrow. It's actually one of the things that we gave the individual who showed basically low stem cells, which was why he was low in all of those different types of immune markers as well. So there's a big crossover effect, and Coleus has a lot of crossover effect in other things as well. For example, Coleus can actually be used as an aromatase inhibitor. So how many women have breast cancer, or they have some hormone-based cancer, and they want to put them on aromatase inhibitor because they think that it's the hormones causing the cancer, and it's not. It's the metabolization of those hormones at the liver. But it can also cause the testosterone to down convert into estrogens a little bit easier. So some will help them convert, some will inhibit them from converting. Coleus also, if people do have high cholesterol, for example, Coleus can also help to convert the cholesterol and be able to convert it into things like pregnenolone and DHEA at the level of the cell. But even Coleus can also relieve cough and asthma symptoms via modulating inflammation. Okay, so Coleus can help with people who have asthma, which I really wish that I had when I was an asthma suffering from the time that I was about 4 years of age until 22, and then I threw away my inhaler. So Coleus has been used to treat asthma. However, the mechanism involved is not clear. So the results showed that a number of eosinophils group was significantly lowered compared with the control group when they were using Coleus. So what did it actually do? Is it lowered down the allergy response, in which these eosinophils where they increase because they're getting stimulated because of an allergy response, a response to a specific type of foreign protein. Okay. So their conclusion was our findings indicated that Coleus significantly alleviated inflammatory-induced infiltration that causes airway remodeling, specifically in asthma. So that's just a couple of things. Albizia, Astragalus, Coleus as well. And I know in other lives we've talked about things like medicinal mushrooms and licorice and inhibiting a viral response and things like that. Here's another one: the immunomodulatory effects of curcumin in allergy. Okay. So when you look at curcumin, what is curcuminoids found in? It's found in turmeric. It's found in ginger as well. Although I will tell you that turmeric by itself, not very good for you. It has the highest amount of phytic acids in turmeric, which means it's very hard to activate. And one of the things that activates it is black pepper. That's why people say, well, why do I need to take black pepper with turmeric? The turmeric that we use, we do not use any black pepper. You know why? Black pepper is probably the #1 IgG food allergy that people have, because black pepper is in everything, which means if you don't break down your foods very well, you're much more likely in order for that to cross the barrier and then cause an immune system reaction. So curcumin, they talk about. So curcuminoids are found in turmeric. They're also found in ginger. In fact, if you're taking a curcumin supplement, it probably isn't coming from turmeric. It's probably coming from ginger. And in fact, I love the people who are like, yes, I take turmeric all the time. My next question is why? Why do you need to take it all the time? Which is why we say start going a little bit deeper. So here's what they say from this article in 2008. Recent years have witnessed a global increase in allergy and asthma, particularly in developed countries. So they say that the phytochemical known as curcumin is anti-inflammatory, anti-myeloid, antiseptic, anti-tumor, and antioxidant properties. Curcumin was reported to have an allergic properties with inhibitory effect on histamine released from mast cells. The effectiveness of curcumin in allergy and asthma has been further investigated using a murine model of allergy. The results indicate marked inhibition of an allergic response in animals treated with curcumin, suggesting a major role for curcumin in reducing the allergic response. Okay, so look at these different things and how they help with an immune system response and how they inhibit what would be known as mast cell degranulation, especially. So another one too, vitamin D. So most people that we test are woefully inadequate in vitamin D. Dr. Nate, how does vitamin D work? And I always laugh at the doctors who say the only reason why you would want to take vitamin D is just, in order to help with calcium levels. Okay. And yes, it does do that, but vitamin D is associated with over 1,500 genetic functions. And to just say that you need vitamin D just based on your calcium levels is just absolutely terrible. And you're doing a disservice to patients by not knowing more about vitamin D. See, what vitamin D does is it helps with your T regulator cells. And this actually helps to modulate between autoimmunity and the body's ability to be able to identify foreign versus self. And this is why when people do have autoimmunity, we always check their vitamin D levels, because their vitamin D levels really do, in fact, need to be 70, 80, 90, and not sitting at 10, 15, 20. Medically, you're considered fine if you're at 30 or so. And in fact, I've even had some doctors say, yeah, you're at 20, 25. It's fine. It's not a big deal. So what does vitamin D have to do with allergies? Well, in this article, it's about 10, 11 years old. Here's what they say. Vitamin D deficiency is reported in very, very high rates. Let's see if I can bring myself back up too. So vitamin D has been reported in very, very high rates. Deficiency has been implicated in various diseases such as diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, and many cancers. It's also been implicated in several allergic disorders and immune system dysregulation. Isn't that interesting? So when they look at this, they said there's a positive correlation with allergy subtypes such as prevalence of rashes, sneezing, and sinus infection with low vitamin D. And they say how low vitamin D is related to the immune system dysregulation, and it has been extensively reviewed. So yes, the science is abundantly clear, is that your levels do need to be at a certain point, and it does play a lot more than just in your calcium levels. It plays a huge role in allergy, plays a huge role in everything that involves the immune system. Okay. So, yes, have you guys had your vitamin D levels, in fact, tested? So, look at all of that research, and we just went over just a couple of things, and including zinc. I only thought I had 3 or 4 slides. I guess I put more in. Zinc enhances the number of regulatory T cells in allergen-stimulated cells from atopic subjects. So people, who have problems with the skin. What do they find? They said the trace element zinc is essential for immune function and regulation, since zinc's deficiency and allergic hyperresponsive reactions are often accompanied. The influence of zinc on allergen-induced cell growth, CD4 regulatory cell numbers, and cytokine expression during allergic immune reactions was investigated. What did they say? So here is the result. Zinc may regulate unwanted hyperresponsive and immune reactions by suppressing proliferation through significant shift from interleukin 10 to the Th1 cytokine interferon Y and enhanced regulatory T cell numbers. Sorry, I have to move my camera. Therefore, zinc supplementation may be a promising tool for the therapy of allergies without negatively affecting the immune system. Isn't that interesting? If you have allergies, how many said, hey, are you getting enough zinc? What are some good sources of zinc? Oysters is a good source of zinc. Liver can be a good source of zinc. And I never ever recommend to take a zinc isolate as well, because that can interfere with copper absorption too. So zinc, vitamin D, Albizia. I haven't even gone over nettle leaf, but also turmeric and Astragalus and Coleus. Look at all of those things that can help when it comes to an allergy response. Okay. So the goal, okay? So what's the goal with these things? The goal is not to keep taking it forever. The goal is actually to not need it. All right. Let me say that again. The goal is to not keep taking it forever. The goal is to eventually not need it. And how do you not need it? By starting to get to the reason why these allergies developed in the first place. And if you want to know why people develop so many allergies, go back and watch part 1 and go back and watch part 2 as well, to get an understanding of why we do in fact have so many people who do in fact have allergies, and why allergies, why food allergies, why autoimmunity. Look at how it's exploded over the last 40 to 50 years, and then ask yourself the honest question: what on earth has changed over the last 40 to 50 years? Are we inducing it chemically? Have we become nutrient depleted? Is it because maybe we no longer eat the way that we're supposed to? Are we doing things that go against body physiology that we didn't do for thousands of years? And also, are we a lot more stressed than we used to be? And is all of that in combination leading to the reason why we do have so many allergies, why we do in fact have so much autoimmunity, and yes, why one of the reasons why we do have so many issues when it comes to mental health as well. So guys, part 3 of allergies, and I went over some things that are beneficial that you might not have heard about, that are backed by research, and that can help you while you go through the process of healing in order to lose some of these allergy responses. And once again, guys, once you, if you are from the Chicagoland area, I can't stress this enough. Please, please, please make sure, guys, that you get to the inflammation talk. Our next one that's going to be in person is going to be Thursday, May 18th at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, although I shouldn't have to say Central Standard Time because you're already here. So 6 o'clock p.m., this is an in-person event, and we're going to be talking about inflammation. And one of the cool things that we talk about inflammation, guys, is that actually medical doctors and in the wellness way approach, we agree that inflammation does in fact lead to issues with weight loss resistance, infertility, cancer, thyroid disease, arthritis, autoimmune conditions, type 2 diabetes, hormone issues, infertility, things like that. But where we start to separate and take a different path is in fact how we handle it and how we treat it. And you will notice that most of what medicine does is either suppressing the effects of the inflammation or trying to knock out the inflammatory response in general, but not look at why it's happening in the first place. Remember this: the body doesn't mess up, the body doesn't make a mistake. That's the perspective that we come from, which is why we're able to solve so many problems, because we say, if the body is not messing up, then why is it doing this in order to adapt? If you had a scab on your knee that wasn't healing, the first question I would ask is why do you keep falling on it? Maybe what you should do is to stop falling on it. And maybe the reason why you haven't gotten better is because you keep re-injuring yourself. Now the job is to figure out how and why you are injuring yourself and to work on doing that, because the natural process of the body is to want to heal. Let me say that again. The natural process of the body is genetically programmed to heal. And why is it any different than a scab on your knee healing? Then why can't your gastrointestinal system heal? Why can't your hormones recover? Why do you continually have an inflammatory response in your joints? Why are all those things happening? And if they're not getting better, then what you need is you need to look at it from a different perspective. So again, guys, if you are from the Chicagoland area, please go. If you're on Facebook, go to the top of the page. That's top of our page, and you'll see the link to register pinned to the top of the page. If you're on Instagram, you can go to the top of in my profile to our Linktree account, and then you can look at upcoming events and be able to register for it there. With YouTube, I still don't know if we do have a link, but you can visit us on Facebook, or you can send us a message through one of our social media channels, and we can get you registered through that way as well. So, guys, inflammation is where you start. One of the reasons why we say come to the inflammation talk is because when you understand inflammation, when I say here's what you need to do, this, and this, it does in fact make a whole heck of a lot of sense. Sometimes if you don't understand that first step, everything that I recommend is just going to sound bizarre because we don't come from a medical approach. And if you understand a different perspective, once you understand, then you are well on your way towards recovering and healing and getting restored. So guys, I hope you have a great night. I hope you have a great week as well. I know that next week I probably won't have a topic prepared just because I'm going to be in Green Bay for the weekend, attending the Wellness Way seminar, learning a bunch of stuff. So we probably will do a question and answer. So get your questions ready, and we'll probably do a rapid fire question and answer for about 45 minutes to an hour next Monday. But I'll put a post out there that will confirm that it will be a question and answer. So guys, be well, be blessed. I hope you guys have a great rest of your